Hi everyone, welcome back to Switch Up and to the series where we look at a few interesting games. Now this is take 2 because I forgot to press the button the first time round. And I was saying in that take that we're not feeling very well.
Yeah, that kind of proved it. Yeah, just obviously voices will be a bit off today, but if you can tolerate it, then we'll keep going. So as Mark said, this is the series where we look at some games we've been playing. Now a couple of these games were sent to us from Strictly Limited Games, obviously the physical releases that they do. They've got a 20% sale on that actually ends tonight. If you're interested, we'll put links in the description. We'll look at those particular versions, obviously what you get with it, but we'll look at the games themselves as well as the other bits and bobs we've been playing.
Absolutely. All right then, so what are the interesting games that we've been playing? Well, let's find out. All right then, I will kick us off for the second time with the game Born in Bread. Born of Bread?
I think it's Born of Bread, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not Born in Bread. That sounds wrong, doesn't it? That's a very different game.
The Hills Have Eyes edition.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
It's a good film, that.
Yeah.
So Born of Bread sees basically the chief baker in the castle, and it's got like almost a Alice in Wonderland style queen, like absolutely bonkers.
Right, yeah.
And she orders her bread for the evening, and he bakes up a loaf, and out of the oven pops the living loaf.
Okay.
Yeah,
right,
and
yeah.
it does have a bit of a Ren and Stimpy style macabre feel to it. Like it's quite odd but funny, you know.
Yeah.
So you take control of it. They're split into two kind of I don't know, two methods of play. You can run around, you can sprint, you can jump, so it has that platform inside to it. Like you can bounce off mushrooms and stuff and move around that way. There are secondary abilities that are unlocked through the side cast of characters. Like you make friends with this little raccoon.
Yep.
Little raccoon fella.
Right.
And he can like burrow through like mounds of I don't know, dirt.
Yeah. We'll go with dirt. Yeah.
And then you can get through to different areas. Now the combat system is an active turn-based system.
Yeah.
So you have to press the button at the right time to do more damage. If you don't, you basically like trip over your shoelaces and fall on the ground kind of thing. But I was saying before, I really do prefer that because it's less boring.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I mean, I was just mentioning obviously Super Mario RPG. It's just come out again, but talking back in the day when it first came out, used that system. And it's been used in things like Paper Mario since, obviously, as well as a bunch of other games. And this, I'm assuming, has been heavily influenced by Paper Mario in terms of that combat system, but obviously the humour and the general aesthetic as well, that hand-drawn style.
Yeah, it's funny because I've actually never played Paper Mario.
Oh, okay.
So this, my only experience of it is through you, essentially.
Yeah.
Through what you've said and reviewed and.
Yeah. So Paper Mario 64, I believe, was the first one, if memory serves me right. And it was kind of the start, I suppose, of the humorous Mario. I mean, it had been seen before, and the game I mentioned a minute ago, Mario RPG, was a big part of that. But because that didn't release everywhere, I think Paper Mario might have been some regions' first experience of this new comical style of writing in a Mario game,
Right.
And obviously it had that look where Mario is literally a piece of paper, so when he turns around, you can almost like see like the white paper behind him as he flips over, Just little details like that games such as this have kind of taken on board since,
Yeah, it does work well. It's like there's the 3D, obviously, with the 3D backgrounds and the flat characters. It does work very well. It does feel like they have done their own thing as well.
Yeah.
It's got very much its own style and feel to it. I was a bit worried about the Switch version because obviously playing it over on the PlayStation, I was worried that I'd pick up the Switch version and it would be appalling. Performance and stuff. But it seems absolutely fine, actually, like low load times and stuff. I would say to people to check out the demo because the demo gives you a good chunk from what I've seen so far of what I've already played. It gives you that first like few hours.
Yeah.
And I think that's enough time to go, oh, actually, this is decent.
Yeah.
Like, I want to try this.
Yeah. It's nice when they do that, like a proper substantial demo for a game such as an RPG. And it's even better when, I don't know if this one does do it, but where they carry your progress over.
Yes. Yeah, that every demo should do that.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
There was the what was I reviewing recently? The Dragon Quest Treasures.
Yes, yeah.
And that let you keep some of your creatures, but it didn't let you keep any of your progress.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Odd choice. I know, like Monster Hunter Stories 2 did carry your progress on, and obviously there's been countless others. Yeah, it just seems the way these days, doesn't it? Sure, it should be at least anyway.
Yeah. So that was my first one. I think it's very good, and I do actually think it's worth people checking out.
Nice. My first one then, so we'll look at one of the ones that Strictly Limited Games sent us, and that's the Turrican. So this is the Turrican, I think it's called like the Ultra Collector's Edition. From
the giant box.
It's a huge box with some bits in, obviously. It's got 2 games in it, both of which have 5 games on it, if that makes sense, you know. And in terms of other bits you get, there's some art cards, there's a statue that you get of, obviously, the Turrican. And a soundtrack, which for me is like, that's what you want. If you're getting a Turrican Collector's Edition, it's all about that soundtrack, and we'll talk about that more so in a minute. But in terms of the games included, so there are a couple of options if you're a Turrican fan on the Switch. There was a release called Turrican Flashback that came out a few months ago now, it might have even been about a year ago now, 18 months ago, and that had 4 games on it, which were Turrican 1 and 2 on the Amiga, Super Turrican and Mega Turrican. This one has, as I mentioned, there is a Turrican Volume 1 and a Turrican Volume 2, and they have 5 games on each, and they have other games such as like Super Turrican Director's Cut and things like that.
Okay.
Not just the standard releases, and the Volume 2 actually has Super Turrican 2 on it, which is a game that, you know, a lot of people wanted to play again. The prices at the bottom of the screen are the eShop prices for each one volume. I think they're about £30 each on the eShop.
Right,
Obviously, that's not the price of the collector's edition we were sent. You'd have to head over to the website for that. But the Turrican series, I mean, I know you've played bits of it, haven't you?
Yeah. Again, only because you kind of were like, this is decent.
Yeah.
So I'll give it a go.
No, absolutely. And it started in 1990 on the Commodore 64, which actually, one thing I will say is the Commodore 64 version isn't included on either edition, which is a bit odd. You know,
is a bit odd.
That's the one, like the glaring omission for me is that they don't include that kind of first release. It's not the best game by any means.
Right.
The Amiga ports were better, and obviously then it moved on to away from home computers onto consoles.
Yeah.
But you would just expect to have that first game on there, you know what I mean?
Is it like a licensing thing or something? Or?
I wouldn't have thought so. I don't really know, to be honest. It just seems a bit strange.
Yeah.
But you know, that's by the by, I suppose. But the Turrican series, so basically they're run and gun games. I suppose you could also class them as like Euro platformers. So the Euro platformer back in the day, especially on home consoles, was quite a big thing. There were obviously a lot of European developers releasing for home consoles, which hadn't really reached America, the home consoles, as much. And they were very much about collecting, like huge collectathons. You know, there was just stuff everywhere. Things like Super Frog from Team 17, where it's just you couldn't walk without tripping over a collectible. You know, and even like Rare years later with Donkey Kong Country kind of brought that back. Yeah. You know, being obviously based in England. And but they're very, very fun run and guns, very manic, very difficult, like, insanely difficult. But they're non-linear as well, which for a run and gun is not the way normally. You know, I can't think of many games since that have done it. I think you had like Valfaris. Do you remember Valfaris? Was non-linear to an extent, and there was another one called Gunlord X, which was very similar to Turrican in its style. But it's still to this day a very unique way of playing a run and gun, and it holds up really well. You know, they all do.
That whole the non-linear has become Metroidvania, hasn't it, basically?
Kinda, yeah. I think that's probably a good way of saying it. It did something very different. It merged a few genres, and it's not something that's stuck. But it's because of that, it feels refreshing to play still to this day, you know? And I mentioned the soundtrack earlier, and it came from a man called Chris Holzbeck, a German composer, and the music is sensational. Yeah. It is on point, mate, and it holds up. Honestly, like, it's just the business.
Nice.
You know what I mean? And if I was ever going to have a soundtrack to a game, this would be one of the ones I'm thinking of. You know, there's a few others, don't get me wrong, but this would certainly be up there. To get that soundtrack as part of this collector's edition is good, you know? I would say Volume 2 has kind of Mega Turrican and a couple of like variations of that, as well as Super Turrican 2, whereas Volume 1 has, I suppose, the more traditional Amiga ports and whatnot, as well as the first Super Turrican. So it's kind of a pick your poison if you're only going for one. Both very good compilations though, you know? Yeah,
nice. Very cool. All right, so my next one then is Fortnite Lego.
Oh, right. Yep. Okay.
I find this really odd.
Yep.
This is a very odd thing. Again, marketing. When you've got as much money as is EA, isn't it? Is it EA Fortnite? Yeah, I think it is.
I don't have a lot to do with Fortnite. I've got to be honest.
Well,
I'm not very clued up with it.
No. Well, if it's not EA, then I apologise profusely. But Fortnite obviously has a big,
following. Yeah.
Huge following, loads of money behind it.
Yeah.
So then to see this Lego Fortnite, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
Is that a load of skins for Fortnite? You know, so you're going to take Lego characters in and start shooting each other? Like, what on earth is that all about? Now, what it turns out they've done is basically build a second game into the Fortnite engine.
Yeah.
So you boot it up and it's like a separate section for Lego.
Yeah.
And when you load it up, it's totally different. It's not like any Fortnite you've ever played. There's not like loads of people shooting each other. None of that.
Right.
It's like Minecraft. weirdly, and the reason I say it's weird is because obviously they just released the Minecraft Legends stuff. It really does feel like they kind of looked at that and went, yeah, that works.
Right.
Let's build that into Fortnite.
Okay. Right.
So the way that you build isn't quite. It doesn't just. I'm not. I might sound like I'm saying it's bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all. It's just not what I expected at all.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, as I said a minute ago, I know nothing about Fortnite really, other than the basic premise of the game, and I certainly enjoyed movies that the Fortnite premise is based on or inspired by. But in terms of the game, I know little about it. I know a lot about Lego.
Yeah.
And I did hear more through the Lego side than the gaming side that there was this Lego Fortnite coming. I assumed it was going to be sets that you could buy.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, at the minute at least, I don't think it is. Obviously, it's in game. But the screen or the promotional shots I'd seen were like Fortnite characters that had been Legoified.
Yes. Yeah. So how it works basically is you start off by gathering resources, chopping down trees. It actually feels a bit more like a life sim, something not a life sim, but like a Stardew Valley or something mixed with a Minecraft.
Right.
It's like somewhere. It's like a halfway house.
Yeah.
So because you basically build up your campfire, and then the thing that I wasn't like, I love the old school Lego games. I love the way you build stuff. Lego Worlds is a great example of being able to build whatever you wanted, but still having those prefab models.
Yeah.
For me that worked really well. It's a bit weird here. So you have a building structure, but then you'll have different parts of it. So like the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and you just need to gather the parts for those, and then you kind of put down the wall, put the ceiling there, and also the way you place them. You obviously do the whole rotate thing, but it's only got 4 axes.
Right.
I want it to be like precise.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get it. I mean, maybe I've missed something there, but I couldn't get it to line up exactly how I wanted it.
Right.
So I just found it a bit odd the way you build the wall, build the ceiling, build the floor.
So what is the again? We've gone from Fortnite to Minecraft, and neither of which I know much about. Yeah. So what is the point, if you know what I mean? Like, are you competing, or is it not like that?
No. So you've got as with Minecraft, in the evenings there are enemies that come out, so like skeletons and stuff, and it has that side of it.
Right.
Now the Fortnite characters have been Legoified.
Yeah.
And they'll enter your world, and your campfire can almost act as like the hub. So they'll give you missions and stuff, things to do.
Oh, okay.
It's a big old open world map. There's like cave systems, all sorts in there.
Yeah.
But you basically build a town.
Oh, right.
So that's what I was saying about Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
You start off with your campfire and then your house, and more buildings become available, and you can end up. And I guess the idea is that you do that with a group of mates.
Yes.
You know, so you all kind of band together, build up this big old town.
So there is a cooperative element, so it's not competitive. Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know if there is some competitive element that comes in later.
Right.
Maybe there is. Maybe you go against other tribes, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
But it's very well done, very, very polished, and just even from just the aesthetics, visually, it looks lovely.
Yeah.
It's really good. You see the mountains in the distance sometimes. You've got the day-night cycle. It also does survival a little bit better than something like Minecraft.
Oh, okay. Right.
So the fire it's got things like heat. So you leave the fire side and it's raining, you're going to get cold, and you'll need to get back or take a torch to keep you warm. So actually the survival side's done quite well.
Yeah. Is it free to play?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
And that's it, completely free to play, like what feels like a polished Lego game.
Yeah.
Do you know what, and I'm going to sound really old here.
Go on.
What worries me about it
Yeah.
is it feels like a gateway drug.
Right. Okay, so like you get hooked in by this bit and then you move on to the rest of it sort of thing.
And you go, look, I haven't played Fortnite in a long time, and I know it's popular and whatnot, but just to get to the Lego content, I had to go through, I'd say, no joke, 7 screens trying to sell me stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
Like Fortnite, the new expansion pack, why don't you buy this? And then the next screen, and the next, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You know, and they will, I know what my kids are like, they'll play that, and then they'll go to the main menu and be like, well, let's have a little go of Fortnite, and that'll be game over.
Yeah.
So you know, I know that sounds old and I know whatever, but I don't like these practices of selling you stuff within other things, even Paw Patrol.
Yeah.
My kid was playing the Paw Patrol game on the mobile, and he got to a certain point, and this is a young child, and a big paywall popped up, and it was like, if you want to unlock Rubble, you need to pay £5.99.
Nah.
And he's there pressing the button. I'm I delete the game instantly.
It's not all right.
It's like, nah.
See, that's the thing. That's why I've never played games on mobile, and I'm not having a pop at mobile at all. But it's just generally that's where the practice has come from.
That's the model, yeah.
The free-to-play model, and I don't. People do what they want, and if they enjoy it, fair play to them, But I want to buy something and know that I've bought everything I need to have a good time with it, and I can't be doing with constantly being asked to buy something else to the point where if something's free, I won't even look at it these days.
Yeah.
Because it's just not for me. Because nothing is free.
Yeah, it's
nothing
true.
is free.
Very
is it?
true.
Do you know what I mean? It's free to start, and you can get about it, and you can do this, and you can do that if you want to, and you can be smart, and you don't have to spend a penny. And I guarantee there'll be people in the comments now saying, I've played X game for 6 million hours and I've never spent a penny. I'm not saying you can't. Don't get me wrong. For me, I can't be bothered. No. I want to buy it. I'd rather pay proper money, buy it, have it in my hand, and then never have to worry about anything like that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, it defeats the purpose of. So a game you should know, or you always did know in the past, that you had the whole product.
Yeah.
And you could achieve everything you put your time to within that game.
Yeah.
In a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you don't know that. If it's a free to play, like, you don't know. There's not going to come a time when it's like, right, and now to get to that zone, you need the Ender Sword 4.
It does irk me, I'll be honest. Like, even things like Mortal Kombat 11, for example, which I loved. I loved that game, right? But then they released the Aftermath DLC. Loved it. Really loved it. Actually, more so than the main story.
Oh, nice.
But that's kind of the point, is that why was that DLC then?
Yeah.
Because that's the story they took as canon for Mortal Kombat 1. You know? And if you hadn't paid the extra, you wouldn't know what was going on.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those murky sides of gaming, I suppose, isn't it, to an extent?
But it really is. Have you seen what happened this week with the older Ubisoft stuff?
No.
So like, people were playing their game,
right?
And they went to go into the map, and an advert popped up. So it looks like they tested to put ads when you like go into your menus and stuff.
Right. Well, it's like the games that, I know we're really labouring this point, but what was it? Horizon Chase Turbo 2 we played the other week.
Yeah.
And to play multiplayer, you have to sign up for an account from whoever it is now. I forget who it is, but I don't want to do any of that.
Nah.
If I've bought a game, I should have the right to say no to anything that pops up in front of me. Do you know what I mean? And I don't have the right to say no, because then I can't access the game.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's not good.
So there you go. Sorry to labour a point, but it is annoying, and I'm sure some of you will agree in the comments.
For sure. Okay, well, the next one I want to talk about then is a game called Clockwork Aquario.
This rings a bell.
Right, so this is another one that was sent to us, so again, thank you very much. And it is another one that is a big collector's edition, and it has some bits in, statues and whatnot. I'll flash some bits up on screen if you want to have a look. I want to talk more so about the game itself, though, because this is a game that does really interest me. So when Strictly Limited said, would you mind if we send you a couple of bits, this was a game that I had in mind because I knew that they had the rights to it.
Okay.
And it has a very interesting history. So basically it was due to be an arcade game on one of Sega's arcade boards. I think it was like System 18. They had various different system boards that they used by a company called Westone.
Okay.
And it was early 90s. I can't remember exactly when, 92-ish. Don't quote me on that. Basically around the time that things like Street Fighter 2 were coming out. And it was a platformer. Yeah. It was going to be a platformer. Street Fighter 2 changed everything. All of a sudden, this game's come out with queues around the block. No one wants to play a cutesy platformer anymore. No. So they scrapped it. I think it had some negative feedback in terms of some trials and whatnot as well,
Yeah.
But the landscape had changed in terms of arcade games, and they were like, no, it's not worth pursuing. It's not worth persevering with. So it was scrapped. Anyway, a couple of years ago, I believe it was Strictly Limited Games themselves that bought the right, or it was either them or Inning Games, who are, have some links. One of the two that bought the rights to the game, the original source code, what was left of it, and they had people come from Westone, original parts of that team, to finish the game.
That's cool.
I love things like that. Do you know what I mean? I love things like that. And they did finish it, and obviously it's been released since on the eShop. But with collector's editions and whatnot. And that's what I mean, like, if you're going to have a collector's edition of something, I would want to have it for something like that, where there's a story behind it, and it feels like a piece of history,
Yeah, so this one, hang on, so they finished the game. Did they obviously modernise it from where it was, or is it just exactly the game they originally planned, or?
It's hard to tell, really, because I don't know personally. I mean, someone might know, and please do enlighten us if you do, but I don't know what sort of state the game was in, how far finished it was. I did hear there were some problems with the source code, or some of it had been lost, but I don't know how much work had to be done to get up to being a game that was playable these days. What I will say, just using my kind of intuition, looking at it very much feels like an early 90s arcade platform.
Okay, cool.
So I'm assuming a lot of it is as it should have been, or as it was intended to be. You basically have 3 different characters you can play as. They do play quite similarly, kind of. I mean, there's like a boy, a girl, and a robot, just to make it easy. And the boy is kind of he's your average Joe. Yeah. He's got the average jump. The girl's got a very floaty jump, and the robot's a bit slower. Very standard in that respect. It has an interesting mechanic where you can almost like slap the enemies, and it turns them blue, and then you can pick them up and throw them.
It's weird.
And the whole point of the game, well, not the whole point because you completely ignore it, but it's about combos, killing enemies on the bounce, quite literally. I mean, you can bounce on their head and getting that combo system going and upping your score because it's an arcade game. Do you know what I mean? But you could just blitz through and ignore that if you wanted, especially now it's on a console, you know? Now, I've looked at some reviews, or not reviews necessarily, but just some of the general reception it received, and it seems to be relatively mixed. Some of the complaints I saw were things like that system, actually, which I disagree with. I actually like that part of the game. Others mention its difficulty being too low, actually, and its length. Again, it's an arcade game. The difficulty isn't typical of that, but the length certainly is. The part for me that doesn't hold up so well, or should certainly have been revised in my opinion, is the jumping or the hit detection more so. It feels very sporadic. Sometimes you're jumping and you're like, I'm going to land right on his head, and you lose a life, and you're like, whoa, what's, you know, and then you'll do the same thing next time and you don't lose. It feels very off. And for me, for a game that actually holds the world record for time between initial development and finished product, 28 years.
Wow.
Get your jumping right. You're nearly 30 years. Sort of jumping out, boys, you know, like. But it was an interesting little curiosity to play, you know, and it, like I say, in terms of Strictly Limited and what they provide, if you're gonna buy something, me personally, I'd be looking for something that's is a bit of a curio and that has a story to it, you know?
Yeah, nice one. That's really interesting. Okay, and that was not just because of the name of the video. All right, my last one, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, is The Outer Wilds.
Oh yeah,
The Outer Wilds released last week on Switch after a ridiculously delayed.
Yeah, it wasn't quite 28 years.
No.
It felt like it, I'm sure.
No, it was second for the record. Yeah, very close. But this one, obviously not to be mistaken for The Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
It is quite confusing.
I have done that a few times actually, yeah.
This is, how best to
describe it?
Well, you're part of a tribe who basically live on this one of these planets, and they're going to go out. They're going to send you out into space.
Yep.
It's a living, breathing galaxy.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So it's like every planet has its own gravity.
Yep.
It's all physics based, like accurate physics based.
Yep.
So like when you go close to a planet, it will start to suck you in. You know.
Yeah.
Its gravitational pull. You're given complete freedom. So when you leave after like an initial kind of tutorial, like the old classic weird things they put into games, like a game of hide and seek with some of the locals, just pointless little things, you know. You realise it doesn't give you anything. You know, you've got complete freedom to go in any which direction, land wherever you want. But it has this mechanic whereby the universe ends.
Oh yeah, okay. It's like you're stuck in a loop. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly right, and it's very short. I can't even remember. I think it might be. I wanted to say an hour, but I don't even know if it's that long. But it's difficult. It's difficult. Yeah, it's a difficult game. You can die in many which ways, but it also has that. Like I love the film Interstellar. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
I love that like feeling of the different planets with the different gravity and stuff, and also like how sad and small and insignificant you are. It does do that thing for me.
Yeah.
And then when you die, obviously you come back and it kind of gives you a recap of the experience that you had in that time. There's this kind of statue that records your memories, which is weird because it must be behind the scenes not filming, but capping everything you ever do.
Yeah.
Because you kind of see this sped up view of everything you've seen.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of cool. It's like your life flashing before your eyes kind of thing.
That's a bit like Super Meat Boy, isn't it? When you die and it shows you all your deaths, you know?
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah. But in like a 3D view.
Yeah.
But this game's not like anything most people will have played before.
Oh, okay.
You know, if you're really looking for something that is totally different, like you may have played something like No Man's Sky, but this isn't like that. Having that like survival not survival, but I don't even know how to describe. It's a very difficult game to articulate.
Let me maybe if I ask you some questions then, because I can't picture it at all, to be honest. So you have the time loop, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a cataclysmic event, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So what is it? You play up until that event,
and
then if you've done the right things, then it will take you back in time again.
There's always progression,
yeah,
because you will have seen, like I think in the footage that you'll be seeing on the screen, I landed on a specific point of a planet that I hadn't been to before,
right?
And I started to discover some of the secrets of that place.
Yep.
Now, just with the knowledge of that, next time you could either go to the next, you find the next clue or find the next thing, but you will have kind of gained some insight into the big mystery.
Oh, I'm with you.
You know,
so it
it's like
records
little pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah, okay. Almost like, I'm sure it isn't, but it sounds a bit like a roguelike, doesn't it?
Yes.
In that way of obviously dying, but having that meta progression that carries on.
Yeah.
So does it keep describe the progress you've made in terms of, I know you mentioned it all, the bigger picture is unlocked.
Yeah.
But in terms of just that, exploring that particular planet, is that kept, or do you have to go back and find the planet again? And
if I'm completely honest, I can't remember. So
Right.
I originally played this like when it first came out, like 5 years ago, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I played hours and hours and hours and hours of it. Then I've replayed just because it came out yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, so I've kind of gone back to it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that like. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember
how that
what
part works
happens.
a bit. Yeah.
I can't. I just remember spending ages doing not the same thing, but going out on a different run. And what I would always do, which probably is the worst way you can do it, is I'd go and find something, and then I'd go somewhere completely different.
Oh,
and I
okay.
ended up kind of like mapping out the galaxy.
Yeah, like scattergun in it a bit.
Exactly, which probably isn't. I don't know if there's a best way or a worse way, but
It's just what you want to do, I suppose, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. But it is a massive game. So
Yeah.
to get like a full review level of knowledge about it, you're gonna have to put
Sink some time
into it.
for sure. Oh, nice. Yeah, it sounds interesting though. I was expecting The Outer Worlds, but with an I in the title rather than an O and an R. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's nice to hear that it obviously is a different type of game.
Yeah.
To an extent. Well, my last one then is a game that I'd played before, but I hadn't given it any proper time. And recently I've sat down and played it properly, if you like. And that's The Takeover.
Yeah, good game.
Yeah, beat 'em up. It came out, hence the reason I think that I didn't play it much. It came out around about the same time as Streets of Rage 4 came out, and at least on the Switch anyway. And so obviously it's a beat 'em up. Plays very similarly to things like Streets of Rage, more so in my opinion Final Fight actually. But it's certainly, you can see its inspiration is from those sort of games. You know what I mean? So you have 3 characters. There's a husband and wife team whose daughter has been kidnapped, so you can play as either of those two. And there's their friend, the big, like bulky fella.
Yeah.
So you have your different start again: average Joe, speed, strength, you know. And you basically go through the levels obviously, and as you would expect in a beat 'em up. What it does do differently to a degree is that you have more opportunity to deliver almost like combos than you do in beat 'em ups generally. You know, just your combination of kicks and punches.
Right.
The way that you deliver those can mean getting more hits in before the enemy falls over. You can almost juggle them in the air like a fighting game at times, you know. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. Actually, I thought that was handled very well. And I like the aesthetic, which is almost a mix of like hand-drawn to a degree with like that plasticine-y look. It's hard to describe because when you look at it just in a screenshot, you almost don't see either of them. But as you're playing it in real time, you see flashes of it. Do you know what I mean? But really very solid game. Very good game to play. And I liked the characters. I thought their moves were handled well. You have like a rage system where you can click in the L button and then you do double the damage and you block any attack that comes your way.
Okay.
I felt the enemies, the bosses particularly, were very well balanced. Which is something that's not always the case in beat 'em ups, trust me. And it was also a nice mix of almost like, so you have the Streets of Rage style, which is a bit more measured in terms of getting those hits in, not so many enemies on screen necessarily, and then you have things like say Scott Pilgrim or Turtles, which is all about crowd control because you have so many enemies, you just got to bounce about, and it kind of mixes the two together. And you get surrounded a lot more than you do in modern beat 'em ups. That's something that's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, you know. And the one thing I will say is, as far as I've seen at least, apologies if I've missed it, but you don't have a backwards attack, which would have been ideal because you get those hits in, and it's all about almost the combo system would have been so much greater if you could knock a couple of hits on the person in front of you, hit someone behind you without having to move, and then carry on with the you know what I mean. So that is missing in my opinion, but very good game.
Yeah, this went into the sales video on Sunday. Yeah, this is on like stupidly low sale at the moment.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about it. Weren't there some like cheap deaths or something, like some crates that fell on your head or something on one of the stages? I can't remember if that was this game.
No, there was. I tell you what did happen to me once. I think it was just a slight glitch because it hasn't happened again. Sorry, but there was a level where you're being chased like by a huge digger.
Right.
And you obviously have to clear through like roadblocks and enemies to get to the end of the stage before it crushes you, you know? And the first time I played that stage, I got to the end of the stage and it must have been, sometimes in beat 'em ups you knock an enemy off screen and they won't walk back on screen.
Yeah.
And because of that, the digger kept hitting me and I died. But I've played it a couple of times since just to double check there's not a problem there, and it hasn't happened again. Right, so I think it was maybe just one of those freak occurrences,
Yeah.
But no, I enjoy this game. Some people say it's better than Streets of Rage 4, or said that when it came out. I don't think I'd go quite that far, just because I enjoy the nuance of that game.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, this is very, very good. And if it's on sale at the minute, yeah, pick it up for sure.
Sweet. Sweet, lovely. All right, so there's 6 interesting games we've been playing.
Yep. Don't forget, if you're looking to pick any of these games or anything else, of course, you can use our website, switchup.gg. You can get your eShop cards on there. You get yourself 5% back in cash back and another 5% if you use the code SWITCHUP. And yeah, it may go towards any games on here. If something's on sale like that Takeover, then you're going to double win, isn't it, really?
Lovely stuff. Yeah, let us know in the comments any games you've been playing that are interested as well. Thanks to our Patreons and members. And that's it.
Yeah, nice one. Take care. And until next time, happy gaming.